So anyway, thank you all participants joining us from Korea University, National University of Singapore, and our colleague from China and Gwangju University. Today's workshop is designed as a shared academic dialogue, bring together emerging researchers and seminar scholars to explore the climate resilience, nature-based solution, biodiversity economics, and social ecological system perspective across the temperate and tropical context. So, before we begin, I would like to acknowledge Professor Roman Carasso from the National University of Singapore. Please say hello.
Hello, thank you so much for organizing. We are very happy to be here, and thank you for making it live stream on YouTube. That's very impressive. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, to officially open today's seminar, it is my great pleasure to introduce Professor Woo-Kyun Lee, Director of the Oh-Jung Resilience Institute and Professor in the Division of Environmental Science and Ecological Engineering at Korea University. I'm working with him at the same department. So Professor Lee is a prominent scholar in forest management, climate adaptation, spatial temporal GIS-RS analysis, and resilience research. And then he has served as a president of the Korea Society of Remote Sensing, director of the Institute for Climate Change Action, and in multiple national and international advisor role in sustainability and disaster risk reduction. So please welcome to the Professor Lee. Thank you for joining us today. So thank you very much, Professor Lee, for the inspiring opening remark. So Professor Lee, so could you please turn on your mic? 교수님 마이크
Okay.
네.
Thank you very much for introducing myself. Thank you. It is nice to meet you all here. Thank you very much. Then can I give the opening welcome remark or not?
Okay, so you can have a welcome remark today.
Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues and friends. I'm Woo-Kyun Lee, Director of Oh-Jung Resilience Institute at Korea University. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to the 2025 KU NSU Joint Seminar titled Nature-Based Pathways, Science-Driven Resilience for a Changing Climate. First, I would like to extend my warmest greetings to our partners from National University of Singapore, and especially to Professor Roman Carrasco and NUS research team who have joined us today despite very busy schedules. I also thank all presenters and participants for contributing to this meaningful academic dialogue. This seminar brings together two institutions committed to advancing science-based solutions for climate resilience, biodiversity conservation, and sustainable ecosystem management. The urgency of climate change, biodiversity loss, and socio-ecological instability requires a new form of collaboration. And today's event reflects our shared commitment to addressing these global challenges. At Oh-Jung Resilience Institute of Korea University, we spent past decade building Korea University's leading research platform on our environmental resilience. As many of you know already, Oh-Jung Resilience Institute was founded in 2014 with the transformative endowment has since grown into a global hub for resilient science. Our year, we established multiple international networks, including the SDSN Korea and Middle Latitude Region Network, launched the Asia Resilience Center, and secured National Research Foundation Core Research Institute designation, which now support a 9-year research program from 2021 to 2030 for 10 years. Our aim is clear: to generate rigorous interdisciplinary knowledge that can guide climate adaptation, ecosystem restoration, and transformative sustainable pathways. Today's seminar reflects the mission. The 2 sessions we have prepared climate resilience through nature-based solutions and biodiversity and ecosystem service pathway in tropics. Highlight not only the scientific depth of our team, but also complementary strengths of KU and NUS in approaching global environmental problem from diverse social ecological perspectives. As you see here in PPT file, we have many research groups, including climate change resilience, sustainable waste management, and water, food, and ecosystem resilience in Mid-Latitude Region Network, and water resilience and ecosystem resilience. So our mission is to advance basic science on ecosystem material cycles, climate-driven environmental changes. The OZE is actually supported by a 9-year National Research Foundation program to 2030 for 10 years, as I told you already. So I would like to extend these research activities and performances to Singapore National University and work together. I hope this seminar becomes a starting point for deeper joint research, student exchange, and long-term collaboration toward building a more resilient future. Thank you once again for joining us, and I look forward to inspiring presentations and discussion ahead. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you so much for Professor Lee and for the inspiring opening remarks. So now we will proceed to the opening speech. Now it's my turn. I will deliver under the title, Nature-Based Pathway, Science-Driven Resilience for Changing Climate. So let me share my file. So please wait a moment. Okay, thank you. Can you see well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, again. Thank you for joining this KU-NUS joint seminar. My name is Jeong-Ah Lee, Program Leader of the NRF Priority Research Center at OZE, Korea University. Today, I will share our research direction titled The Nature-Based Pathway, Science-Driven Resilience for a Changing Climate. This presentation highlights the scientific foundations, methodologies, and collaborate framework that guide our joint work with NUS. Okay, so let's think about it. Let's begin with by explaining why we are here today. So this workshop brings together researchers from Korea, Singapore, actually Malaysia, but nowadays she is not busy, so she cannot come in here, and China, to rethink how we respond to the accelerating the climate risk. So we are now living in what many describe as the anthrophony of uncertainty. So extreme heat, flood, biodiversity loss, wildfires, and ecosystem degradation are no longer isolated issues. They are interconnected, very complex climate disaster. So our goal today is to strengthen an integrated evidence-based framework for climate resilience in Asia. Okay, so now briefly explain our research lab. So Ecological Green Infrastructure Planning Research Lab. So our work focuses on understanding the interaction between human and nature, human and environment, and designing resilient spatial strategies for sustainable cities. Now we emphasize the three core pillars. First, climate change compound disaster analysis. Second, social ecological system diagnostics and green infrastructure planning as the nature-based solution. So we aim to enhance the urban resilience by linking ecological restoration, social health, and spatial planning together. Okay, so here you can see that across the Asia, we face converging the environmental pressures. Rapid urbanization, intensified heat wave, air quality crisis, wildfire risk, watershed degradation, coastal threats, and biodiversity loss. All those are the complex climate change risk. Korea, Singapore, even though the Southeast Asian countries face to the similar pressures, but within very different ecological context by regional characteristics by regions. So this makes comparative and collaborative research essential, I think. So we must develop solutions tailored to the tropical, temperate, or the coastal ecosystem, but grounded in shared scientific framework. Now here you can see our scientific platform. Over the past several years, our group has built a robust scientific platform integrating social ecological system modeling, nature-based solution evaluation, climate resilience analysis, ecosystem service and carbon modeling, and AI-driven ecological diagnostics. So with more than 40 peer-reviewed publications, including in landscape and urban planning, land use policy, and then environmental sustainable and technology, we are well positioned to advance the transnational social ecological system and nature-based solution research with NUS, I think. So nature-based solution, or we can say easily NBS, it offers a powerful pathway to climate and disaster resilience. So through a social ecological system perspective, we focused on the nature-based solution can first protect ecosystem, second cool cities and buffer climate extremes, and third and sequester carbon, and fourth manage water and multi-hazard risk, and finally strengthen community well-being. So nature-based solution is not just an environmental strategy, It's a holistic resilience framework connecting nature, people, and economy together. So from now on, I introduce to you my research domain. So first, socio-ecological system analysis. Our first research domain is socio-ecological system-based diagnostic analysis. Over the past 5 years, we have systematically developed the socio-ecological system framework, as you can see in this slide, the left side of that. So that is a causal loop diagram. It's from the system dynamics causal loop diagram and feedback analysis, and then put in the 4R resilience, dimension, robustness, redundancy, and rapidity and resourcefulness. So this directly supports objective 1. So socio-ecological system analysis is our joint proposal, AI-based socio-ecological system typology and cultural structure detection. Actually, so we proposed the submit to the NRF. Now we are waiting for the research fund good news, right? So, and that is the main objective of that. And then the research domain, second domain, that is climate resilience analysis. The second domain focuses on the climate resilience analysis, including the heat wave, flood, heavy rainfall, and water cycle vulnerabilities. So our team has developed a quantitative method to evaluate the resilience of the compound climate disasters. So this integrated SES analysis with the MBS intervention to assess how green infrastructure can enhance cooling, water regulation, and community resilience. So I think so this evidence is supported to the next slide for the linking climate resilience with health and the well-being. So, and then we finally make the nature-based solution and green infrastructures. So we compare the ecosystem service outcomes across the multiple spatial design, vegetation, structures, and land use configurations. Our goal is to drive optimal climate adaptive spatial strategies, including the tree species selection and ecosystem services based on design alternative. And sometimes we need to the trade of the 4R and the ecosystem services categories we need to. So this directly feed into the the reason why we needed to the balance between the economic things and social things and then ecological things. And so this directly feeds into the ESG, TNFD, and other nature-related financial framework. So that's why I asked to the collaboration team together, Roman. So, and then domain 4, the carbon cycle and ecosystem service modeling. The first domain quantifies nature's climate solution through detailed carbon modeling. So we assess the carbon sequestration across the forest, wetland, agricultural areas, and urban green spaces. We also integrate to the life cycle assessment. Actually, the life cycle assessment is the very popular tool, but in our lab, it is the first try to assess the ecosystem service evaluation using the LCA to understand the trade-off between the carbon strategy, biodiversity, and water systems. So this research provide, I think, it can be a robust make a robust platform for nature-based carbon accounting the framework. And then last one, research domain 5th on AI and machine learning. So our 5th domain leverages AI and machine learning to advance ecological analysis. So we apply the multimodal deep learning, neural network, XAI, NLP, and remote sensing to classify the spatial pattern and predict risk and optimize MBS deployment. So Actually, recently our work has increased focused on the wildfire prediction and then SES based on spatial resilience modeling for the watershed. So our team published the resilience evaluation by AI machine learning model. So at the Journal of Hydrology, so we can check the performance of the performance of the system resilience from the flood issues. And then now we can have the three critical scientific questions. So how can we quantify the MBS effect with precision using AI, SI modeling, and remote sensing? Or how do we integrate the nature-based solution outcomes into the global reporting system? So aligning with the ESG, TNFD, SDGs, IPCC framework. So those are the very vague framework and general ideas. So now I wanted to focus on the regional scales by our country's characteristics put in the data and items, and then after the diagnostic, and I wanted to suggest the good solution to improve the nature-based solution to making a green infrastructure system in urban areas. And then how can nature-based solution improve both the ecosystem and the human life? That is the very big deal of the trade of the social system and the ecological system. So connecting together outcome to health, safety, equity, and well-being, and economy, of course, ecological quality. How can we make a good balance together? That is my three main questions, always to improve, always to doing the research, and I wanted to share these questions all together in here. And then we propose the AI empowered SES analysis to transfer the climate risk understanding. So NLP for policy governance analysis, causal loop and climate ecosystem interaction, remote sensing for ecological change detection, machine learning for wildfire vulnerability mapping, and then trade-off analysis for optimize the MBS portfolios. So this represents a shift from the reactive problem solving to predictive the resilience planning. Okay, so here you can see our collaborated framework from Korea, from Singapore. So Korea provided the strengths in the urban climate risk modeling, nature-based solutions, spatial design, social ecological system, typology development, and then analysis. And I think Singapore contributes to the expertise in the tropical biodiversity and ecosystem service economics, nature dependence assessment, urban ecological well-being, and business biodiversity framework under the global biodiversity framework. Actually, so just describe that as your CV, based on your CV, and so it's not exactly the what do you contributed to us. I'm not sure. Anyway. Okay, so here is the direct alignment with the proposal and objective. So main topic is just for AI-based social ecological system, typology, and cultural structures. And second, nature-based solution, effectiveness, and ESG and TNFD integration. Actually, so it is very difficult to combine together to concept of that in Korea. So it's not a business, the different business field, the biodiversity and economic field. So, and how can we combine together? It is very big issues in Korea nowadays. And then health, well-being, and community resilience is the main goal. for the landscape architecture fields, and then international platform development. So that is just a briefly roadmap, foundation building, policy transaction, and analytic integration and regional scaling. So these phases approach to ensure we build strong foundation before the maintaining scientific rigor work together in collaboration. It's kind of the big plan with us together. So, da-da-dan! Here we can meet the Pan-Asian Nature-Based Solution Hub meet. So climate system, biodiversity, human well-being, AI technology, and policy simulation. So now we can make the Pan-Asian Nature-Based Solution Hub together. Thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to your questions and productive discussions. Thank you. Okay, so finishing my first opening speech. So do you want to discuss a little bit of questions I can receive, or the continuously we have the special lecture from Roman? Are you ready to give us a speech?
Yeah, I don't mind discussion or going ahead. I think thank you for the presentation. I think that was very insightful. Describes very well what you are working on now, but also it's very interesting how the different connections with NUS are laid out. I think that's very useful. And I like this idea of the Pan-Asian Nature-Based Solutions Hub. It sounds very impressive. Normally for these collaborations, the issue is where the funding comes from, but it could be something like a matching fund, like a grant from NUS, grant from Korea University. And then we have already some initiatives on nature-based solutions, but some of the aspects here, I think they are quite innovative and they are not integrated in our university. Like our climate science is something that we are trying to strengthen. I think we are quite okay in biodiversity. We are doing quite well, particularly in urban biodiversity, coastal, marine environment. We are quite good, I think, because we are a small island. Links with human well-being is something that we are working on integrating, but I think we could do more. And AI also is a bit nascent, so the use of AI for climate systems, biodiversity is something that we are not doing enough yet. So we have some initiatives, but I think not as comprehensive as this one. So I think it looks very positive. And it will be great to see how we can complement each other's expertise. I think, at least for my group, we focus more on the interface of biodiversity and human well-being. AI, not so much. We are trying to become a little bit more focused on that, but not so much. Climate systems, not so much.
I think so. AI and technology, the aspect, and another Professor Lee in Korea University, he can help to us to improve our collaboration. And then actually, so at the Malaysia, Technology Malaysia University, and she cannot attend this seminar today, she wanted to join our research group together. So I think it is helpful to making the AI technology portion of that. So, and then another guest from today, so Min Kim, so she is very expertise for that and AI and technology and climate system analysis. And so I think it is very good collaboration teams making together now. So anyway, okay, so before we move into the Roman Carousel's speech. First, I will introduce to us together first. Professor Min Kim. So she is Gwangju National University. So she is a specialist in disaster risk reduction, climate adaptation strategies, of course, and AI and technologies modeling with the social ecological system modeling and with expansive research experience in multi-hazard resilience across the resilience context in Korea. So please say hello to us here, Professor Kim.
Hi everyone, my name is Min Kim. Actually, I'm from Gwangju National University. I think the wrong affiliations are listed in the poster. So, and thank you. I was used to be in Korea University a postdoctor process. So, and thank you for having me. I'm very interested in AI-based carbon sink park management or renewable landscape design. So yeah, let's see the next discussion part. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
another guest from here. So hello, Zhao Wei is there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so please let me introduce yourself by yourself.
Okay.
So he is from the Fudan University at Shanghai.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I am. Sorry, it's a bit change. Yes.
It's good.
Okay. So yes. Sorry, my network has some problems, so I can sometimes I cannot use my network. So, but anyway, thank you for having me here, Professor Lee, and I will introduce myself a little bit about my research and my background. And I'm an associate professor in Fudan University, Shanghai, Department of Environmental Science and Technology, engineering. Sorry, and my research is primarily based on nature-based solution for urban climate resilience and human health. I got my PhD from University of Copenhagen in Denmark, and I work as a postdoc in Denmark and assistant professor in Denmark, University of Copenhagen. Interesting is like yesterday, as a participant, professional professor, a professional guy to join a report between China and Germany. We just released this report yesterday in COP30. I have also shared the file in our chatting room, and if you are interested, you can read the report. This report is named by nature-based solution and beyond. Synergies between biodiversity and climate. I think this report is quite interesting because it collect some case study about nature-based solution and climate change and human and biodiversity between Germany and China. So this is all my introduction. But anyway, I welcome all of you to come to China, come to Shanghai, to face to face to discuss. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Professor Lee. Yeah, this is
Okay,
my
thank
introduction.
you.
Yeah.
And then another guest panelist, she is Professor Ingnan Lee. So please introduce yourself.
Oh, hi. Hi, everyone. Hi, Professor Lee. Hi, everyone. So my name is Yingnan Li. I'm an associate professor from Jiangsu University, and thanks to the National Fund of South Korea, I had a chance to collaborate with Professor Zheng Li in the past 1 year. I was working as a research professor there. My research focuses on urban climate resilience, nature-based solution, and assessing urban thermal environment. I'm very honored to join today's panel, and I also would like to express my appreciation to Professor Roman. I'm looking forward to your presentation, and I hope we can have more discussion after your presentation. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now we'll move to our keynote speech. Our keynote speaker is Professor Roman Carrasco from National University of Singapore. So please introduce by yourself, and then now your time, your screen, the screen is yours. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you so much for sorry, 1 second. Thank you so much for the invitation and for organizing. I think it's great. So I don't know if I am screen sharing or not. I think it's at desktop. Can you see my screen? So I cannot see you guys anymore. Can you see my screen?
No, not yet.
No, not yet.
Not yet. Oh, okay. I don't know what happened because it was sharing. No, it's kind of frozen. Okay, let me try again. First time this happens. Let me see. So, okay. You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. I need to. You see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I try. So yeah, I'm gonna show some of the research that we have done in my group, and it's mostly related with some aspects of the proposal. I mean, some of the students in the group will cover other aspects, but I think the use of nature-based solutions in cities, particularly in Singapore, is something that we are interested on, and how the different ecosystem services that are provided by these nature-based solutions will lead to human well-being. So we have been doing research on that as well. But you will see through the presentations that actually we are quite broad in the terms of the scope that we cover. But I thought this was quite relevant in the context of the potential collaborations. Okay, so first I want to present the framework for supply demand ecosystem services that we use for the research in urban settings and well-being. And the idea is that building of IPBES framework or standard framework ecosystem services, we have supply through nature, then we have people benefiting, and then in the context of Singapore, the supply and the demand is very important that they match. And when they match, and they can match through some forms of co-production, which it could be like making nature very accessible to people, or making it very easy to reach. And then that's something that government is trying to have parks near every house. When this is combined, then we get the benefits, and then we get the value of ecosystem services. So, for example, in terms of exercising in nature. But under climate change, there is a threat, especially in the tropics. It's getting very hot, and also it's affecting our rainfall patterns. So we are starting to have sometimes droughts that are very unusual, and potentially that could lead to the decrease in the quality of the supply of ecosystem services on the left. But then it could also become too hot so that people cannot go outside and enjoy nature, the supply of ecosystem services. So potentially it could become thermally unsuitable for going out, and it could compromise the effectiveness of nature solutions to contribute to well-being in Singapore. Okay, just to give you an idea of how different might be Singapore to other Korean cities, this is a survey we did to see what were the most important ecosystem services for Singaporeans, and we found some unusual things. For example, foreign investment, branding is considered quite important in Singapore through nature-based solutions. So because Singapore has this tradition of portraying itself as a country in which we have very high and very well-maintained nature parks, urban and green spaces, that's part of our identity. Then also very important, nature for mental health and physical health. We don't have much space, so we have very high density of people, and the pace of living is very fast. So people need to de-stress in a small space, and this is done through the provision of nature-based solutions that are also in high density, so that people can achieve mental restoration within a small distance. And then, of course, very important, coastal protection, water for our country as well. Also very important for us, temperature reduction and reduction of air pollution. Singapore is very hot, very humid, and the thermal comfort can be compromised. So the role of nature for cooling Singapore is something that has been promoted for a long time. Okay, so in this sense, because climate change could threaten all these ecosystem services that are very important for Singapore, we have been doing research to try to understand how these ecosystem services will benefit different people, and how we can ensure that this supply and demand matching continues happening under climate change. So I'm going to show you some pieces of research that just to motivate discussion and to see whether we have some common interests. I will go through some of previous work in the group. This was trying to understand usage of parks for different forms of exercises depending on where people live. And the hypothesis is that people tend to exercise in a certain way depending on the type of parks, green and blue spaces that they have near their home. And this is a nationally stratified survey trying to represent the different socio-demographic factors and asking people how they exercise and how, what type of exercise and how long. Just to show you some of the results, so we found many interesting patterns that actually make sense. So for example, overall exercise is linked to this interaction of having shrubland and water, and it makes sense. I mean, people like walking, exercising by the reservoir, so they get a view of the water, but they also are in areas that have some trees, so that they provide some shade. So there is a bit of a synergy there, some combination of blue and green. For individual-based exercise, also running is quite conducive in areas that you have shade and you can oversee water. But then other exercises like team sports exercise will be in areas that don't have trees and have more grasslands. And for walking, we will go to manage vegetation and also much for nature reserves. So just a bit of an overview, but what it tells us is that how we design our green spaces matters quite a bit in the type of activity that people end up doing there and how they relate to each other. Yeah, these are some of the interactions. So if you get more higher levels of water and managed vegetation, you get more exercise, and similar interactions, you have a higher level of water and grasslands, you get more individual exercise. So what we found here, and I think it was interesting because it's something that was not done commonly, is that it's not just going out to nature. The type of nature mixes are important for the type of activities that are done in the parks, and that there is certain characteristics that lead to people practicing certain sports. Okay, the next research that we did was trying to understand whether nature-based solutions could contribute to life satisfaction in cities. And this is important because we want to have a country that is welcoming to people, and the people that live here also are happy here in the whole life. So they will not want to leave Singapore, right? They will want to contribute to Singapore. So again, this was a national survey. Nature dose here we estimate as frequency and duration of green space visits. We also consider indirect nature dose through the window. This is important because Singapore is very hot. So sometimes we get our contact through nature to nature through the window, not necessarily going and spending time there. And then we consider a life satisfaction scale. And the idea is that higher nature dose will lead to higher life satisfaction. This is something that in temperate regions has been established, but we know quite little about this in tropical countries. So we found some aspects that were expected from the literature. So if you spend around 1 hour outdoors in green spaces, you have a slightly increase already in the life satisfaction. So regular activities in green spaces lead to life satisfaction, that's expected. And then we found other surprising things, like it's not only the duration, it's also the diversity of the green spaces. So it's not just going to the park, to the same park 1 hour a week, it's also having diversity of where you go. So sometimes you might go to the beach, some days you go to the mangrove or the primary forest, other days you go to the nature park. Then the diversity also is linked to life satisfaction. And that one is something that surprised us. Another thing that was interesting is that people will have more benefits if they have high nature relatedness. And this is something that happens more in tropical settings. Our explanation is that because it's hot, it's humid, to go to the forest and really enjoy, you really have to have a lot of connection to nature already. So you go to the forest and you enjoy. But if you don't have this nature connection, going to the forest can be quite unpleasant. There might be mosquitoes, it might be hot, people don't enjoy it as much. But when they have this connection, they get this boost in life satisfaction going to the forest. So that was interesting. And another interesting finding we found is that nature draws through the windows is important, because when we are at home, many times we'll be in a comfortable environment, it's cooling through the aircon. So the nature dose is much more pleasant than being out there. So what I want to say here is that the tropics are quite different to temperate regions when it comes to the well-being that nature solutions provide. And how these nature solutions impact people is modulated by things like nature relatedness. Okay, the next research was done actually by a former Korean postdoc, Wang-Gi Young. He's now in Chunnan University as assistant prof. Wang-Gi was very interested in how how temperature could affect park visitation, and whether people will stop going to parks because it's too hot, which potentially will break the supply and demand link for ecosystem services. So this was done in a very interesting way because we use mobile phone data, which will allow us to understand how long people travel to the nature reserve, how long they stay in the nature reserve, and then we can relate that to their ethnicity, their age, and then when they leave. So it was an alternative to doing surveys, but it was much more powerful. And then we studied this nature reserve, which is the main left primary forest in Singapore. And our hypothesis is that as temperature increase, people will stop going to the park. Rainfall and wind will not affect that much. So this is the map of Bukit-Timah Nature Reserve. It's a very nice place to go, and the different regions where the people will go. And then we work with the national telco company. These are how the data look. You have these fluctuations, is how people go to the parks. It has a spike in the weekends, public holidays, and then depending which region they come from and the ethnicity. Actually, we didn't find what we expected to find. It was not that clear that higher temperature will reduce visitations. Actually, what we saw is that if it was sunny, it was a hot day, you will have more people going to the park. So it was a bit counter of what we thought. But there was a bit of a threshold effect, 31.7 degrees, which is when it becomes quite hot. Then we couldn't find this increase in visitation after that threshold. Then there were other patterns depending on the origin and ethnicity. What we found, however, is that the duration time of the visit in the nature reserve started to become less when the temperature was more than 31.7 degrees. So our explanation is that this is a sunny day, it's great, let's go to the nature reserve for a hike. But then once we are there, we feel quite hot. So we go home earlier, right? So in a way, this is potentially explaining that the demand for ecosystem services decreases as the temperature becomes too hot. So yeah, the temperature was not relevant in the decision to go to the nature reserve, but more for the duration. And we also found that people that travel from far away to the nature reserve will spend more time, probably to make the most of the trip. So again, Wang Yi is an environmental economist, and he's specialized in discrete choice modeling, and we're trying to understand whether people value parks near their house and what were the characteristics of the parks that would make them more valuable. So we did another survey, and then we asked people to imagine that there's going to be a park near their home, and this park can have these characteristics. So this method, as you know, is very versatile because you can put many ecosystem services, and then we put those that we thought would be important, like air pollution, temperature, noise reduction, biodiversity, and then other characteristics of the park, and the price to contribute to have the park, some conservancy change. And then through asking discrete choices and fitting the models, we found that in Singapore, people put a lot of importance on temperature reduction, and they value having green spaces near their house because it will cool them down. And also they value the reduction on air pollution. Air pollution potential of green space actually is not that high, but Singapore has had problems with severe air pollution from fires in neighboring areas, so people are quite sensitive about it. Interestingly, people didn't put so much emphasis, or we couldn't find a relationship related to biodiversity. Our explanation is that sometimes some species can be a problem. For example, macaques will get into the house and try to get food, and you can have crows. So some people, they like biodiversity, but they want it in nature reserves. Near the house, they prefer not to have certain species. Yeah, and this is when we talk more about nature reserves, which is slightly different to the neighborhood parks. In here again, temperature is important, but people are more accepting on having birds, and it matters the facilities defined in the nature reserve. So this was interesting. I think it showed the preferences of Singaporeans for different parks. Okay, and how important is to cool down Singapore. This research is another one that in which we were trying to go beyond the idea that you have a nature-based solution is going to improve well-being, but not all nature-based solutions are equal. There might be aspects in nature that make one solution more effective than other, right? So linking to the assessing the effectiveness of nature-based solutions. This one was more powerful, this study, because it was an experiment. So we brought students and we randomized students into different walks that have different characteristics in terms of naturalness, right? And the idea is that the more intense is the diversity of the nature, the more well-being they will receive. Okay, so this is an example of the past. Some of them were a secondary forest, others were more like closer to primary forest, and others were in a normal park and in urban areas with tall building or landed properties, right? So this is more the urban areas. And some parks were very dark with closed canopy, others were more open. And some students even got scared when the park was a little bit closed. And surprisingly, some students never go to the nature reserve, which we found very interesting. Okay, so this is a structural equation model. And then we found things like perceived animal diversity contributes to restorativeness. And then through this mediating effects of restorativeness, we have higher positive affect, right? And the opposite happens for negative affect, the negative feelings. So this was interesting because it shows that it's not just you go to a green space. The perceived biodiversity of the green space is the one that leads eventually to the level of well-being. So we thought this was a very interesting message in Singapore, because there's a lot of pressure to convert our natural habitats into housing and then trying to enhance parks, right? But what we see here is that actually those areas that have very high biodiversity are very hard to replace with new planted areas, right? Biodiversity really makes a difference. Okay, and then this is a last type of research I want to share. This is more using AI. So we have a PhD student working on this type of research as well, doing AI for image analysis, text analysis. In this case, we wanted to see whether we could analyze photos from social media to try to understand whether nature will have a prominent role in very important moments of our life. And we thought that hypothesis that in weddings, there will be more nature feature than when the photos are tagged as a routine day or a normal day. Or when there is a wedding proposal, we were thinking probably will be done in a nature setting, right? So we use AI to analyze the photos, right? So this one can be done in many countries. We got photos from 195 countries from Flickr. And then we check tags of daily routines, fun, weddings, honeymoon celebrations, and vacations. And yeah, this is how the AI works. It will just label the photos as it identifies the different content of the photos. And then through these labels, we will run statistics to try to see whether certain tags are more frequent when there are labels of nature. Okay, so these are some estimates in the model. So here you have the purple and the blue are honeymoon and vacation. So you can see, for example, that water, general nature, landscape tends to be much more prominent in honeymoon and vacation than it is in when the tag celebration or compared to the baseline in this case is a daily routine, right? So you will have much more backdrop of nature in your honeymoon photos than the photos on a daily routine. So it came to confirm some of our hypotheses that nature is important in critical moments of our lives. However, wedding was not that clear. It was a bit mixed. Our explanation is that probably the wedding has a lot of constraints, right? So the parents might say, oh, you have to marry in a hotel. You're not going to bring people to a hot part of Singapore. Right? But when it comes to the decisions of the couple, yeah, there was a new nature was in the backdrop, right? This is another presentation of the results showing similar importance of nature in aspects of our life that convey a lot of happiness. Okay, so we thought it was interesting. It shows that it's not just the time you spend in nature or the biodiversity that nature might have. It's also about what specific point in your life you rely on nature for your ecosystem services. And it shows that those moments of life that really matter are linked to nature. So just as a getting all together, so nature is very important for Singaporeans. It's linked to life satisfaction, although we know it's complicated in the tropics because it's very hot. Biodiversity matters, and but those that are able to identify, those that have this nature relatedness will benefit more. And temperature is making it hotter. It's getting hotter in Singapore, and temperature could break the supply-demand relationship for ecosystem services. So we need a lot of careful urban planning, how we deploy these nature-based solutions to ensure that we continue having our physical and mental health. Okay, and these are the researchers behind the presentation I gave. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much on your presentation. So I think so if you look at this national survey from Singapore, something very strict emerging, and most respondents perceive the cultural ecosystem services as the most important benefits they receive from the nature, right? So now, guys, nowadays, you focuses on the value related to the mental health and physical health, recreation and aesthetics and inspiration, and those are the broader cultural demands like branding and national tourism and highest level of the importance, right? So actually, so these are the items, the research items that I really interested in the in my field, but nowadays beyond on the climate issues, and then so I forgot the importance of the cultural services as well. So and now reminded the biophysical and supply-based services such as the flood control and water quality and the temperature reductions and combine together, and we needed to the perceived resilience, and we needed to check the to increase the quality of the life with the people, with the nature, right? Okay, so and now let's move on to the next session is the researchers sessions. So 10 minutes presentations they prepared. So session 1, first, climate resilience through nature-based solution. Go back to the Korea part. So the first presentation is Soo-Jung Kang. Are you ready?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so our first presenter is Soo-Jung Kang from Korea University. Actually, so I introduced to you by email. So she wanted to internship at the Singapore in this winter vacations. Anyway, so her presentation
Okay.
is about the classification of forest adjust areas through socio-ecological system analysis of a forest fire. Okay, you may begin when you're ready, Soo-Jung.
안 하긴 했는데.
Oh, different style. The screen. It's good.
Sorry. It's, hello, this is Soo-Jung Kang from Korea University. I'm a PhD student in Korea University. I'm conducting research on the topic of classification of forest adjacent areas through socio-ecological system analysis of forest fires. In recent years, large forest fires have increased worldwide in both frequency and intensity, driven by rising temperatures, irregular rainfall patterns, and increasingly dry atmospheric conditions. In this context, forest adjacent areas where forest and urban areas intersect are especially vulnerable. These zones face a higher likelihood of ignition and tend to experience greater social and economic impacts when fires occur. And first fire occurs and spreads research result from the combined influence of climate conditions, forest characteristics, and human activities. Because these factors interact in complex ways, a systems-based approach is required rather than examining each factor in isolation. However, previous studies often considered forest fire drivers separately, limiting our understanding of forest fire risk as a social ecological system. Also in Korea, forest adjacent areas are often defined simply as a 100-meter buffer, which does not reflect spatial characteristics. So, therefore, this study aims to provide a more refined spatial typology and propose tailored strategies for forest management. This study followed four steps: identifying key variables from prior research and data, developing a causal loop diagram to analyze forest fire risk within a social ecological system, and establishing typology criteria for these areas, and applying the typology to Gangneung, Gangwon-do, South Korea, the pilot study site. And based on this result of the pilot application, a customized forest fire response and management strategy is proposed. This is a research framework. The study consists of two main stages: building a theoretical foundation and conducting a empirical analysis. In this second stage, these criteria are applied using spatial data. Population and land cover data are processed in GIS program. Grid system is created as the unit of analysis, and each grid is assigned population and land cover attributes. Through this process, grid level aggregation and classification are performed, and representative land cover types are extracted for the final typologies. Research area is Gangneung City, a leading tourist city located on the east coast of the South Korea. Exhibits the typical characteristics of a forest adjacent area with its proximity to the coast and forest, and a blurred boundary between urban and forest areas. These geographical and spatial characteristics create conditions where forest fire is concentrated at the intersection between human activities and ecosystems. Next is research results. Based on prior research and data analysis, key variables were identified that influenced the occurrence and spread of forest fires. This suggests that forest fires are not simply caused by climate or ecological factors, but rather a complex system closely linked to human activities and social damages. This causal loop diagram showed that forest fire risk emerges from the interaction of social and ecological systems. Reinforced loops illustrated how forest fire risk increased due to global warming and economic losses and human ignition sources. And balancing loops showed how forest conditions and humidity help buffer risk, while land use changes influence ignition and spread in both positive and negative ways. These feedback structures confirm that forest fires are not merely ecological or climatic events, but complex socio-ecological phenomena. And based on the combination of these two systems, forest fire risk areas can be classified into these four types. Each type is derived from the dominant roles and interaction patterns of specific factors within the causal structures. The following is visualization of the population density and land cover type on Gangneung City. The actual pilot target area analyzed in grid units, 1 kilometer green units based on these criteria. And the classification result for Gangneung City showed 4 types of the forest adjacent areas. The high-risk complex type appears mainly along the northeastern coast and part of southern inland, where both human-caused ignition and ecological spread risks are high, requiring integrated forest fire prevention and planning. And a second, socially vulnerable type is concentrated in dense residential areas along major roads and tourism zones where ignition risk is high, and stronger community safety and evacuation system are needed. And the ecological vulnerable type is found in deep inland forest and low population density, but high spread potential due to dense conifer forests and steep terrain, making continuous ecological monitoring essential. Lastly, the low risk buffer type is distributed across agriculture and stable forest areas, acting as buffer zones that help block fire spread from nearby high-risk regions and requiring long-term conservation-focused management. So in summary, forest adjacent areas in Gangneung were classified into 4 types, revealing that underlying drivers of forest fire risk differ significantly across locations. However, the study has some limitations, lack of dynamic temporal modeling and limited applicability since it focuses on just one single pilot region. So these limitations highlight the need for further research. This study is significant in that it reframes forest fires as social ecological phenomena and presents a system thinking based analytical framework. And this study suggests that classifying these areas can support more tailored forest fire management and informing spatial planning, guiding developed decisions, and strengthening community-based prevention and evacuation efforts. Thank you for listening. If you have any further questions, please contact me with email address. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Suzanne. Your causal loop and SES typology approach nicely complement Roman's talk showing how human and ecological feedback shape climate-related risk, right? So do you have any short questions for the Suzanne?
Maybe I can ask.
Yes, Suplement.
Yeah, I think the causal loop diagram is great. I like it a lot. It's a very nice way to describe how fires occur. And yeah, sometimes we see presentations that only focus on physical variables, but I think the social aspects are very important. We have done some work on fires in Indonesia. So if you want, perhaps interesting to apply your causal loop to Indonesia. I wanted to ask you, have you considered taking fire event data to fit your causal loop diagram?
Yes, not all variables, but some variables I can take I can get the data, some data, and the research is ongoing stage, and after all variables are all data are get, and then we can simulation in the system dynamics modeling, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I think it would be interesting if you could those links in your data set, if you could fit them to data, say, oh, actually this arrow is very strong, this one is not so strong. I would be curious to see how your diagram is different when fitted to Korea fires or Indonesia fires. Might find different strengths or connections there.
Okay, thank you for question.
Okay, so can we move the another speakers? So actually, so we have a discussion panel time. So at that time, you can freely discuss it together. Okay, so our next presenter is Mr. Jian-Gong B, also from Korea University. The title of his presentation is Nature-Based Green Infrastructure Decision Support Framework for Enhancing Riparian Ecosystem Service Resilience. Jian-Gong, please go ahead. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
어, 네. Okay. So first, hello everyone. I'm Jin Gong-bi, first semester master PhD integrated student in Professor Jung Lee's lab at Korea University. First, I'm very grateful to be here today and to have the opportunity to present at this seminar. I will begin my presentation titled MBS-based green infrastructure decision support framework for enhancing riparian ecosystem services resilience. This is the table of contents. Here is the research background. Urbanization accelerates the structure and the functional degradation of rivers, leading to water quality deterioration and reduce the ecosystem service resilience. Recently, nature-based solution has gained attention as an alternative approach, and the concept of the green infrastructure has been actively integrated into river restoration and management. MBS-based green infrastructure enhance the multifunctional stability and resilience of ecosystem service by restoring river system and expanding urban green space. So therefore, this study aims to quantitatively evaluate the effect of MBS-based green infrastructure applied to urban riparian zones and to propose the optimal land use strategy to restore riparian ecosystem services resilience. To achieve this, we developed land use change scenarios, quantitatively assessed the riparian ecosystem services, and used the interaction analysis to identify the optimal land use strategy. Our study area is the riparian lowlands along the Kumak Stream and the Gyeongwon Stream in Yongin City. In the past, Kumak streams suffered from severe water pollution due to inflows of domestic wastewater and sewage. Due to recent purification project and the expansion of a wastewater treatment facility in Yongin City, the water quality has steadily improved, and the stream is now regarded as a representative case of urban ecological restoration. However, as the impervious surfaces around the stream continue to expand, a large volume of pollutants is quickly washed into the river during rainfall events. In particular, the riparian lowlands are highly vulnerable, often experiencing flooding, pollutant accumulation, and overall water quality decline. For these reasons, this area shows a strong need for nature-based solutions, especially strategies that can stabilize water quality and enhance ecological resilience. Here is the framework of research. Land use change scenarios were developed based on key factors to urbanization affects the ecosystem structure, and ecosystem functions for each scenario were evaluated using the best model based on the resulting 어떤 거로 강조된? So can everyone see my presentation file?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. So, based on the resulting functional changes, ecosystem service interactions were evaluated to identify land use strategies that most effectively enhance the ecological resilience. Next is a summary of how each influencing factor affects the ecosystem functions. For water quality, higher pollutants loss reduce the purification capacity, while longer runoff pathways enhance the filtration effect. In addition, higher removal efficiency leads to more effective water purification. For microclimate regulation, greater evapotranspiration and vegetation cover contribute to reducing local temperatures, whereas higher temperature intensify heat island conditions. For habitat quality, habitat sensitivity and threat factors increase the vulnerability to disturbance and reduce overall habitat quality. In contrast, the lower accessibility generally contributes to higher habitat stability. For water yield, increased precipitation and the lower temperatures lead to greater water availability, and the favorable biophysical conditions have maintained balance in filtration and runoff. Last, for carbon storage, larger vegetation and the soil carbon pools result in higher total carbon sequestration. These improves factors serve as the basis for developing three land use scenarios. So next, here are the input data set and the variable used in the investment. Next is the result and discussion. First, scenario one, street tree planting and rooftop greening was developed based on the street tree enhancement plan and the public institution greening plan presented in Yongin City's Green Space Master Plan. For the street tree component, canopy widths were assigned according to the sidewalk with diversification standards provided in the Korea Forest Services Street Tree Planting and Management Manual. In addition, rooftop greening was applied to two public institutes located with the study area, Yongin City Hall and the Cheonggu office. Next is a wetland restoration scenario was developed based on the current conditions of the Kumhak Stream riparian zone. The mid-lower reach of Kumhak streams are located in the geomorphologically low-lying areas where heavy rainfall frequently leads to flooding and overbank flow. Across most sections, except the upper reach, wetlands are largely absent, which intensifies the water quality degradation and the pollutants from agriculture and commercial areas flow into the stream. In addition, strong development pressure in the downstream commercial area, along with heavy rain inflow of pollutants and floating waste, has caused the deterioration of the riverside environment. So considering these conditions, scenario 2 was designed as a wetland-focused strategy, converting existing riparian green space in the lowlands into ecological wetland. Scenario 3 is a mixed strategy that combines the greening approach of scenario 1 and with the wetland restoration approach of scenario 2. This is the quantitative evaluation result of the invest model for each scenario. Average temperature decreased in scenario 1 and scenario 3 compared to the baseline, showed a slight increase in scenario 2. Habitat quality improved in scenario 1 and scenario 3, whereas it decreased in scenario 2. Water yield decreased across all scenarios compared to the current condition, while carbon storage increased in all scenarios. Both nitrogen and the phosphorus exports decreased under all scenarios, and with scenario 3 showing the greatest improvement for both indicators. Overall temperature reduction, habitat quality improvement, carbon storage enhancement, and the pollutant reduction exhibited synergistic relationship, whereas water yield shows a trade-off. These are the results for each scenarios based on the quantitative assessment. Scenario 1, which focused on the expanding urban green infrastructure, showed overall improvements, including reduced the average temperature and increased the habitat quality and the carbon storage. However, reductions in nutrient exports were relatively limited. This is because the added green spaces were concentrated in residence areas, contributing more to climate regulation and the ecological connectivity than to non-point pollution reduction. This finding provides the useful evidence for enhancing the functional direction of urban green infrastructure policies, such as climate regulation, particulate matter mitigation, and the landscape corridor strengthening. Scenario 2, which involves the wetland restoration, yielded the greatest improvement in water quality and the carbon cycling. However, slight increase in average temperature and decline in habitat quality were observed. This is interpreted as a result of wetlands being confined to low-lying riparian areas, where climate regulation effects remain spatially limited. Nevertheless, this scenario is evaluated as a key ambitious strategy for strengthening the functional resilience of river ecosystem. In addition, it offers the empirical evidence that can support the watershed management and the policy making in downstream areas. Scenario 3, which combines the green space expansion with wetland restoration, represents a mixed ambient strategy that produced the strongest synergistic effect among multiple ecosystem services. Because the two approaches function complementarily, maximizing connectivity and the ecological efficiency between urban and the riverine systems. This scenario has the potential to evolve into a watershed-based ecological network restoration model that integrates the urban river watershed linkages, and it can serve as a foundational data for long-term ambient-based integrated resilience management policy. Comparison of the three scenarios shows that each individual strategy improves the different aspects of ecosystem services, indicating that a complementary combination is necessary to maximize the overall effectiveness. When budgets are limited, scenario 2 is more appropriate for improving water quality, whereas scenario 1 is more suitable for achieving balanced enhancement across the services. In the long term, scenario 3 is a mixed strategy that strengthens functional linkage between urban areas and the rivers is evaluated as the optimal approach for simultaneously improving system stability and resilience across diverse ecosystem functions. Last is conclusion. This study provides the policy relevant evidence for integrated ecosystem service management by empirically evaluating urban river linking ambient strategies. In particular, by connecting the climate regulation and air quality improvement effect of urban green infrastructure with the water quality and carbon restoration functions of river renaturalization. The studies demonstrated the potential for a watershed-based resilience restoration model. These findings indicate that NBS-based resilience management systems can make meaningful contribution across various sectors, including urban planning, hydrological management, and carbon neutral policy. However, the study focused primarily on the water quality and the carbon storage benefit of wetland restoration, and those did not quantitatively assess the hydrological and hydraulic effects such as flood mitigation. So future research aims to apply the watershed scale hydrological models to comprehensively verify the flood reduction and runoff regulation effects of wetlands. In addition, to address the study's emphasis on environmental factors, future work will extend toward a multi-dimensional assessment framework by incorporating socio-economic indicators and biodiversity indices, enabling a more holistic analysis of the socio-ecological impact of ambient. Here is the reference. Thank you for listening.
Okay, so thank you for your excellent work and presentation. So together, so your studies highlighted how climate resilience must integrate an ecological process, social dynamics, and nature-based solution, right? So do you have any questions?
Sorry, I had some issues, but I think it was a great presentation. I really enjoy the estimation of different ecosystem services provision by nature-based solution. I just wanted to say that in Singapore, we have this program called ABC Waters, Active, Clean and Beautiful Waters. And the idea is to transform canals, because we have used a lot of engineering solutions for water flood prevention control. So mostly they are concrete canals, but now they are trying to turn them back into natural rivers that are accessible by people and that can lead to community usage, right? So I can paste a link to a report, but I see a lot of similarities. So yeah, there are some colleagues from the engineering and environment school that would be interested in this research.
Thank you for your introduction from the Singapore situation about those similar studies. So let's move on to the next student's presentation. Wang Yuedong, please keep the 10 minutes presentations. We are lots of students left. Okay?
Okay, Professor. Can you hear me, Professor? I will show my screen. My
Screen is not
screen.
yet. So please share your screen first.
I will. Professor, can you see it?
Okay, great.
Okay. I will change. Oh, okay, Professor. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, professors. My name is Yuedong Wang, and I'm Professor Li's PhD student. Today, I'm very honored to make the presentation here. And my presentation title is Dynamic Thermal Resilience Mechanism in Urban Ecosystem, a case study of soil metropolitan areas in South Korea. As we all know, cities are growing fast, and this intense density creates a massive heat problem. This similar challenge affect how people live and how much energy in cities use. Now, when we look at the UHI effort, it's not uniform, but the biggest issue is that research not only look at a simple single picture, the structural temperature difference. This traditional approach has drawbacks. Firstly, these old models oversimplify the real world. And secondly, this is the main point. They ignore the ecosystem dynamics captured to handle certain heat events, and like heat waves. So we measure the city's active difference mechanism and systematically measure three abilities: resistance, of course, short-term ability to block heat, and the recovery is how fast it cools down afterwards, and the adaptation, the long-term trends of heat change. This framework gives us the powerful accuracy data we need for the urban planning or designing. Okay. Our research seeks to address the limitation of the static view. The first we have 2 years analyze spatial temporal evaluation of UHI and urban expansion from 2000 to 2024, and secondly is clarify the SMA into urban meteorological typologics. And the third is contract and quantify the 3D thermal resilience indicates. And the fourth is use light GBN and shape values to review the nonlinear driving mechanisms of urban morphologies. And finally, we also propose resilience informed planning strategies. Okay, next part about the research sites. Our research site is in SMA. This region is a fantastic case because it's one of the most populous and densely urbanized mega cities all over the world. It provides an ideal laboratory for studying complex high heterogeneity, thermal resilience mechanisms due to the rapid expansion and intense UHI efforts. Okay, next is this slide shows our research framework. It's a system integrate multi-source, multi-temporal data from Landsat for IRST and NDVI to detail the morphological indicates. The process flow is systematic, moving from the data attributes to dynamic indicates construction, and finally to propose optimizing strategies. Okay, next page is about we also integrate remote sensing data like Landsat 5, 8, 9 for 6 different time, because the time is from 2000 to 2024, along with specific vector data for buildings, pavements, and green infrastructures. Yes, and our analysis focus on key urban morphological facts like from the right tables like GAC, BCR, and BH and FAR and IYSF like this type. And next, we also use 500 metagrade cells to capture block level features, 3D dynamics, thermal resilience index where calculated resilience, recovery, and adaptation, and then use light GPN and shape values to capture the non-annealing relationships and quantify the contribution of each morphological facts. Okay, let's talk about the results of this research. This result shows the spatial temporal evaluation of the similar environment. Firstly, look at the land cover change continuous build-up expansion occupied from 2000 to 2024, especially in peri-urban regions. This expansion results in a loss of nature surface totaling a change of 13.61%. And this year's LST maps shows sustained UHI intensification with the LST rise in build-up areas being significantly higher than in non-build-up areas. R6PED, LST, and NABI confirm the strong immense relationship between surface temperature and the vegetation coverage. The spectrum temperature of high temporal rooms over the years directly correspond to areas with low NDVI under crossing the wet row of the green structure School Island. Okay, this is GAC distribution. This GAC distribution shows a typical U-shaped population and a large number of growths and all have GAC near 100%, whereas urban and rural years characterized by low GAC. Similarly, the RSF contribution also shows a strong polarization with a significant peak concentrate, maybe higher than, not maybe, just higher than 90%. And next is about the, present the 3D thermal resilience metrics. From these pictures, we can see resistance has high spatial heterogeneity, confer that GI provides strong intimate processing capacity, and recovery has a near zero means, but a massive range, indicate higher uneven heat dissipation across the city, and adaptation has a positive means of 0.4973. This confirms that the UHI efforts has inspired over the 25 years period shows long-time system-wide adaptation. Okay. The details of the annealing drivers for resistance, including the BCR across the short-term cooling capacity to drop sharply from 0.6 to 0.5 continuously. GAC improves the resistance, and for coverage, high BCR also shows a clear negative impacts, meaning dissipation slowed down in dense areas. And this evidence confirms that build densely immediately direct for performance. And because on an adaptation, the adaptation slope represents UHI worsening. A rise actually as build up indicates increase. And until BCR reach roughly maybe 20%. This proves that the thermal damage is most similar during the initial state of the urban and the high density development. Furthermore, a sharp analysis reveals that the resistance and the recovery is major predict temporal. Yes, okay, next about the review of the most critical results. Urban homology is a diversity factor for long-time adaptation, especially RSF and BCR are the most influence on temporal drivers, and the high values of the RSF and BCR sharps push up sharp values positive, directly translating towards long-time seam adaptation, and the collection reforms that we can see a strong positive collection between RSF and the BCR and adaptation, and the GAC maintains productivity rules with a negative collection. Yes, it's minus 0.35. Okay, finally, we can talk about the conclusions. The first is UI efforts have continuous intensified. The second is we established resistance, recovery, and adaptation as independent efforts. Like resistance and recovery are similar mechanisms. And thirdly, yes, the roles of the build-up areas is confirmed. ISF and the BCR are the most important effects determine long-term adaptation. Therefore, planning must implement different interviews focus on the enhanced recovery in high density areas and implement structural cover control over the expansion of ISF and BCR to improve the city's macro level similar adaptation. Oh, okay, this is the results. Okay, this is my presentation. Thank you very much, professors.
Thank you for giving the presentation, Yue-Dong. Okay, so in the Korea side, our presentation from biodiversity impact assessments to global spaces vulnerability under the sea level rise to South Asia economic dependence on the nature something, and then so Session 1, we saw the SES-based wildfire typologies, MBS-driven riparian ecosystem service modeling, and AI-based thermal resilience analysis together show the importance of integrated ecological processes, spatial planning, and climate diagnosis. So, do you have any comments or questions?
I think that was a very interesting presentation. Not my area. I think probably for Prof. Matthias Roth, that would be very interesting. Just to say that I like your use of SHAP and to interpret the machine learning. I think that one I didn't know. It looks quite useful. So you can apply that to any type of machine learning models, neural networks. You can apply as well.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Roman, ask to him to again.
Oh, sorry, Professor, you asked me? So I need to explain about the models I used.
No, I mean, I find very interesting your use of SHAP, SHAP.
Yes, I use the LightGBM to in this research. Yeah.
So I was wondering whether you can apply to any machine learning model, or what machine learning model did you use?
I can show you LightGBM LightGBM. I can show you from this framework. Yeah, Professor, you can see in this part. Can you, Professor, can you see? Oh, no, it's not here. It's just yeah, here. The LightGBM. Yes, it's because in this research we we choose research areas from 2000 to 2024. It's a long time. So this model can analyze over the long time. So we choose this model. So,
Oh, I
but
see.
Professor, if you can give us better comments or better models, maybe we can choose another models to make them together and make them comparison, or to I think it's better for research. I think.
No, sounds good. I mean, I'm not familiar with this light gradient boosting machine. Sounds like a
Okay.
boosting. But yeah, I guess it's like a random forest, right? Like a improved random forest.
Yeah, it's yes. We also, Professor, you can see here, in this part, this file, this land cover or land use maps. We also use first models to calculate to get them. And this and from this part we use GBN to calculate them. But this part we use first model.
Okay. Well, it looks very powerful, very useful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, so now let's move on to the session 2. So could you please can I proceed the session 2, or the Roman, do you want to? Me? Okay.
I'm okay. Yeah, you can. I'm happy to introduce as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So please introduce to your students or the researchers.
Oh, okay. So who is next? Inton, you are next, or
Yes, I'm next.
you
So
want
I
to
share my
introduce
screen.
yourself?
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Intong Zhu, and I'm a third-year PhD student from Prof. Roman's lab, and I work on integrating biodiversity into business sustainability, such as measuring corporate biodiversity impacts and whether the ESG assessments can capture biodiversity impacts and so on. Yeah.
Okay, so welcome to this conference, and then please give your presentation within 10 minutes.
Okay. Can you see my screen? So today I will give a presentation on one of my PhD thesis chapter, the alignment of the tools to estimate business biodiversity impact with the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. As known, biodiversity loss is rapid, exceeding planetary boundaries most among the key planetary systems. Current species extinction rates are at least tens to hundreds of times higher than the background extinction rates, and around 1 million species of animals and plants are facing extinction. However, businesses and biodiversity are interconnected and influence each other, and this is known as double materiality. The negative impacts from business on biodiversity include deforestation and habitat destruction by planting commercial crops and so on. And the positive impacts could be from a company's biodiversity offset project for ecological restoration. However, currently, the negative impacts and the resulting biodiversity loss are driven by most industries rather than a few, through a variety of channels, encompassing land use change, pollution, invasive species introduction, overexploitation, and so on. Biodiversity loss also has substantial impacts on business, such as global warming leading to population decline in pollinator species, reducing production and revenues of related agricultural industries, which is seen as a physical business risk. Biodiversity loss is accelerating, and businesses are also facing ever-increasing biodiversity-related risks. Tackling biodiversity crisis necessitates joint efforts from businesses. The Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, the GBF, was issued by Convention on Biological Diversity introducing new conservation aspects compared to its predecessor, the Aichi targets. Importantly, for the first time, the GBF calls companies and financial institutions to measure, monitor, and disclose their risks, dependencies, and impacts on biodiversity. At the same time, with double materiality recognized in business community, some tools for business to measure their biodiversity impacts have been developed. Here we define biodiversity index as a tool that allows estimation of the impacts of business on biodiversity using a combination of quantitative metrics, datasets, and models, such as GloBio, Recipe, and so on. The EU Business Ed's biodiversity platform summarized the biodiversity indices, and here are a few examples. However, the reviews on those tools for business biodiversity impact measurements focused on life cycle assessments without delving into the available biodiversity indices. As a result, it is hard for business to navigate such a rapidly evolving field. Given the fundamental role of the GBF, it is essential to examine to what extent the available biodiversity indices can assess different aspects of the GBF. So to fill in the gaps, we attempt to answer to which degree do the biodiversity indices align with the GBF and what are the main gaps in coverage. To represent the biodiversity components of the GBF, we extracted 30 metrics from the selected 18 targets of the GBF, and hereafter they are coded as GBF metrics. So we did this based on some criteria. We use this method because each GBF target is phrased as a short paragraph and often contains multiple distinct aspects. Assessing the targets as a whole would be difficult. So we broke these targets down into metrics as more homogeneous units that function as components, elements, or sub-targets to facilitate our assessments. For biodiversity indices, we selected totally 17 biodiversity indices from 2 authoritative sources, the EU Business Ed Biodiversity Platform and the TNFD. Subsequently, we first checked whether biodiversity index covered the GBF metric. Based on the information that this index covers, its calculation methods and its practices and applications in real-world case studies. Then I obtained a matrix like this, where 1 denotes covered and 0 not covered. For each biodiversity index, we calculated the proportion of the metrics it covered out of the total number of the metrics as a performance score of this index in covering the metrics. Likewise, for each metric, we also calculated the ratio of the number of biodiversity indices covering that metric to the total number of indices to quantify the overall coverage of a metric by the indices. Then to assess how well a biodiversity index aligns with the GBF targets, we traced each GBF metric back to its targets. For each biodiversity index, we calculated the proportion of the metrics covered by it in the targets that it covered at least one of the metrics. For example, one biodiversity index is called the PBF, and it covers only one metric of the GBF target 1. The GBF target 1 totally had 3 metrics, so the PBF covered 1/3 of the metrics of the GBF target 1. So 33% is the alignment between them. We did this for each pair of biodiversity index and GBF targets, and then got the matrix containing their alignment scores. Then for each index, this alignment scores was summed across the GBF targets and divided by the number of targets to obtain an overall alignment score for each index. This is the summary of the indicator calculation. Then for the results, the coverage of the metrics by the indices varied across the metrics, with the metric regarding corporate biodiversity and environment impact assessment covered by all the indices. Land use change and climate change were frequently covered, but sea use change and ocean acidification, as well as the effects of climate actions on biodiversity, were not covered by all the indices. Ecological aspects like ecological integrity, connectivity, and restoration were also not covered well. Most of the biodiversity indices only consider species diversity, overlooking the genetic aspects of biodiversity, and only consider terrestrial biodiversity and neglected the freshwater, inland water, coastal, and marine realms. some metrics were only covered by a single biodiversity index, showing high specificity. And strikingly, some metrics were completely disregarded by these indices, such as recognizing indigenous people's territory, human connection to nature, and urban green and blue spaces. Among the biodiversity indices, the ABDI and STAR performed the best, covering over 40% of the GBF metrics, followed by BMS and BISI. However, they were still far from an ideal index that can cover most of the GBF metrics. All the other indices displayed relatively low coverage, all below 30%. While the ABDI had the highest coverage rate, it was designated for agricultural production and agrobiodiversity, which may limit its use in assessing the impacts from businesses in other sectors. Then the targets differ substantially in the coverage rate, indicating an overall unbalanced emphasis on the GBF targets by the biodiversity indices. The target 14 was heavily focused, including the most frequently covered metric, environmental impact assessment, and many other targets were not adequately covered, particularly targets 12, 4, 13, and 17. In conclusion, although there are many tools to measure business biodiversity impacts, they do not align with the GBF very well. Many conservation aspects in the GBF were insufficiently addressed, as listed here. There is thus an urgent need to fill in the missing gaps and develop integrated biodiversity indices that align better with the GBF if businesses are to effectively contribute to stemming biodiversity crisis. This paper was published last year, and please feel free to read if you are interested to know more about the details. I thank Prof. Roman and my TAC members, Prof. Brian and Prof. Johan. I also thank my lab members. And that's all for my presentation. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Inton. Any questions? Anyone?
Okay, so anyway, so can I see the next slide for your papers?
This slide.
Yes. So you already published this paper?
Yes, published in April last year.
Oh. Okay, so and I have a question. So given that the land use change remains one of the strongest drivers of biodiversity loss globally, right? So, and how should the biodiversity accounting tool evolve to better capture, especially explicit land use transition? Actually, so land use sometimes the transition areas we can see, especially in rapid urbanizing more regions or the something. So how can we keep the land use situation?
I think there's a need to have spatial data of corporate asset level location. Then this data could be combined with the satellite-derived data, nature-related data like deforestation and biodiversity hotspots to better quantify the dynamic biodiversity impacts from the corporations. So this should be considered by the tools for estimating business biodiversity impacts.
Actually, so GBF target index it's just the focus on the land use, right? So and so in social ecological system research, drivers such as the human behavior, governance, and land use pressure strongly shape biodiversity outcomes. And I wonder about how can we assess the biodiversity, enhance the human behavior or the activities? How can I think? How can you think about that?
I think the GBF not only consider land use change, but also incorporate in a comprehensive manner many factors that are associated with biodiversity in social economic systems. So I think we can make the use of the indicators in the official monitoring framework of the GBF that have already incorporated lots of indicators in future research.
Thank you. Any questions? No?
Yeah, just to know that Inton is doing a lot of interesting research, so it was a hard choice to know what to present. But in this space of biodiversity impacts from businesses, I think she is very well versed. So any collaboration would be great with her.
Thank you for your questions and welcome for collaboration.
Okay, the next speaker is Yuchun. Yuchun is doing excellent research on sea level rise and impacts on biodiversity and ecosystem services. Yeah.
Yes, and also land exchange. Okay, so yeah, as Prof said, currently I'm working on the global impacts of sea level rise on ecosystem services in biodiversity and also land use change. Today, I just maybe chose one of my chapter to talk about the sea level rise impacts on biodiversity. Okay, then I share my screen. Okay, right. Okay. Okay, so this presentation is about modeling the global impacts of sea level rise and biodiversity on the climate change. Okay, so first, we all know that the situation of global warming during the current 150 years, the global mean temperature has increased over 1 degree, which further accelerate the sea level rising. And you can see, especially in the current 20 years, the sea level rises 200 millimeters since last century, amplifying the frequency and intensity of extreme flood events. Okay, so this situation, the accelerated sea level rising, will also result in the secondary consequences for biodiversity. For example, where the land elevation are close to or below to the sea level, the unprotected lowlands would be inundated by sea level rise. So the species habitat may be inundated by sea level rise and increase extreme floods. However, now there are only some local scale studies, maybe focus on the insular biodiversity hotspots about how the sea level rise impacts the habitat loss, or they maybe use some fixed sea level rise hypothesis with post inundation maps. So here is our first research gap: the global projection of sea level rise impacts on species level habitat loss, and terrestrial vertebrates remains unclear. Second thing is that different species maybe have varied adaptability and mobility in response to the flooding and to the sea level rise. So to evaluate the impacts of climate change, IPCC provided a framework like combined exposure, sensitivity, adaptability of different species to assess the vulnerability. Here, the vulnerability means the extent to which biodiversity is unable to cope with the adverse effects of climate change. So this one also, it is an interaction of exposure and sensitivity and adaptability. However, there's another gap, is that currently no global assessment focusing on terrestrial vertebrates' vulnerability to sea level rise and flooding. They only use general assessment, only focusing on the bigger definition, climate change. So here in our new framework, I will use the inundation by sea level rise and flooding as the exposure in the species vulnerability assessment. Okay, then this study aims to answer 3 questions. First, what is the potential land loss due to sea level rise under different climate change scenarios? Second, what are the potential habitat losses for terrestrial vertebrate species due to sea level rise? The last one is, how will the vulnerability to sea level rise and flooding affect habitat inundation for each species? Okay, for first question, the potential land loss. First, we combine the future sea level change, which we derived from IPCC, and the annual flood level projections. This one, I used the current extreme storm tide levels as an amplification proxy to get the future tide level. Then we get a future sea level, subtracting coastal elevation. Here, we generated the inundation modeling to do the inundation procedure. As shown in the diagram on the right, I use this model by the bus tube approach and 8-sided connectivity rules to remove all the isolated patches from the inundation maps. So finally, we got the new sea surface, subtracted current sea surface, and conducted the potential inundation maps under different climate change scenarios across this century. Okay, so here is the result about global inundation map under SSP5, the worst situation. We can see the global land loss area by sea level rise at the end of this century under SSP5 will reach 2.44 million square kilometer. And if we zoom in terms of the spatial distribution, inundation areas are mainly concentrated in the Southeast Asia and the Eastern China, Gulf of Mexico, or Amazon Delta. And also we can see the earlier years, such as 2040 and 2060, contribute more to the land loss accumulation, indicating a greater loss rate by the mid-century. Okay, for the second question, potential habitat loss for the species due to sea level rise. First, the extent of occurrence of more than 35,000 species for almost cover all the terrestrial vertebrate species were derived from the IUCN. Then we subtracted the ranges of unsuitable elevation and unsuitable land cover type to develop the map of area of habitat, AOH. Here is the diagram show the differences between EOO and AOH. And then I overlapped the future inundation map with the AOH maps to conduct a potential habitat loss raster map for each species. Here is the result. If we define the species who will potentially lose more than 10% of habitat ranges in 2100, we call this severe habitat losses. We can see the reptiles are most affected. They shows the highest number of species experiencing habitat loss. This suggests that reptile may be particularly vulnerable to future environmental changes. And followed by birds, then amphibians, finally mammals. But we also found that the threatened birds, mammals, and the reptile species will face the disproportionate losses in 2100, indicating that maybe many at-risk species will potentially exacerbate their extinction risk after experiencing the inundation. Okay, this global map just shows the species with potential to lose all non-habitat ranges in 2100 under SSP1. We can see that 1 bird species, 2 mammals, 21 reptiles, and 8 amphibians maybe lose 100% of their non-habitats in the future. Here we can see all these extinction risk species mainly distributed in the Caribbean and Northern Australia and also the west coast of Central Africa. Then compared to the SSP5, we can see the extinction risk on the SSP5 increase. More species categorized as higher extinction risk levels appear. And we can see all the increased species in blue will be concentrated in Northern Australia and the Cayman Island. Also, the number of species also increase. Okay, for last question, the vulnerability to sea level rise affected the habitat inundation for each species. Okay, due to the various distribution density for each species within its corresponding inundated habitat, so the actual loss of each species population from sea level rise will be smaller than the potential loss from this map. So here we just use the potential habitat loss map as our exposure, then did a trait-based quantification to assess all the species, their tolerance of sea level rise to grade the sensitivity and the adaptability. Finally, combine all these three scores to get the vulnerability results. Here, finally, we can rank the terrestrial vertebrates' vulnerability to sea level rise and flooding. In total, more than 7,000 inundation-affected species were assessed in this framework. Okay, here is the result about the trait-based quantification score. We can see that the higher score means higher vulnerability. Mammals have the highest scores, indicating the greatest vulnerability, while birds are most resilient to sea level rise and flooding with the lowest score. That makes sense because birds have strongest mobility to the sea level rise. Okay, then we combine all three dimensions of our assessment to get the bubble plot for each categories. Okay, first for bird under SSP5 at the end of this century, we can see the vertical and horizontal black lines representing the average value of habitat losses and fitness scores, divided all the birds into 4 zones. This upper right zone with high vulnerability and high exposure are highly vulnerable species. The species in lower left zone is the safe persister with low vulnerability and low exposure. And for this species with high exposure but low vulnerability, they are the potential adapter in the future. So through this assessment, we can see although all these 5 bird species have potential to experience 100% inundation exposure, we can still use this vulnerability assessment to prioritize the conservation order among these 5. Okay, then is the similar results for mammals, reptiles, and amphibians. And finally, let's conclude this research. The global land loss area by sea level rise is predicted to be the 2.30 million square kilometer by the end of this century. The habitat ranges about 20% species will be affected by sea level rise. Species at extinction risk, 100% extinction risk due to land loss in 2,100 were mainly distributed in Caribbean, Northern Australia, and west coast of Central Africa. Reptiles have the largest species number of severe losses, while mammals have the greatest proportion of threatened species. Also, mammals show the greatest vulnerability, while the birds show the lowest impacts. Okay, that's all of my presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks a lot to all the members from our lab. And here's my contact information.
Okay, so thank you for your presentation. So do you have any questions about that? No. Okay, so anyway, so we will have a discuss time sessions. So at that time we're gonna share your ideas together, and then let's move on to the next presenter. Her name is how can I say?
Suying. Suying is also doing a very interesting research on combining nature dependency for businesses. So it's a very new area. And yeah, I think it will be a nice presentation. Yeah, Suying, go for it.
Okay, thank you, Roman. Is that correct? No. Sorry. Share. Then, can you choose share? And just this. This one, Windows. Then choose this. Okay. Okay, thank you. Yes. Can you see my screen? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shu Ying, second year PhD student from Roman's lab. I'm working on evaluating nature dependency, and this is my first chapter for my PhD thesis about evaluating Southeast Asia's economy dependency on nature. So as we all know, nature capture serves as the invisible foundation of global economy. According to the report by WEF in 2020, more than half of global GDP is highly or moderately dependent on nature capture. From food to water, biodiversity to recreation, ecosystem services provide important foundations for economic activities. However, human activities are degrading natural systems at rates far exceeding their regenerative capacity. So as defined by natural capture correlation, nature dependency refers to the business reliance on or use of nature capture to support economic activities. We can also see from the right figure by the WEF, it shows how different sectors depend on nature. So basically, all businesses depend on nature to some degree, whether for raw materials or for ecosystem services like pollination and water supply. So under such context, at the same time, we are witnessing an unprecedented biodiversity crisis with increasing extinctions and plummeting species abundance worldwide. We can easily see from this figure, there is a sharp increase in recent centuries with ecosystem services lose their function and the nature is lost. The key inputs to economic systems become reliable. It can cause massive economic disruptions, and Southeast Asia intensifies these problems because it is both a biodiversity hotspot and also one of the most threatened areas. At the same time, Southeast Asia's economy is heavily dependent on tropical agriculture and forestry, creating the trade-offs between biodiversity conservation and economic development. Therefore, it is important to understand how its economy depends on nature. In recent years, there are many global initiatives emerging to incorporate nature's value into economic decision-making, such as Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework and the Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosures, two concepts also introduced by Yingtong before, and also some exploring natural capture opportunities, risks, and exposure, anchor for short, and nature's contribution to people. Despite these initiatives, the regional level nature dependency variations remain poorly understood. So the right figure shows a recent report by PwC. They show that more than 50% of the Asia Pacific's economy is dependent on nature. However, the studies at the country level are still essentially absent. Therefore, two research questions of this research are what is the degree of nature dependency of Southeast Asia's economy, and how does this dependency vary across ecosystem service types, sectors, and countries? To answer this, I combine two data sets, ANCO and Arrow. So ANCO is a framework provides ratings for dependency and the impacts of economic activities on nature. And Arrow is macro-regional input-output data that quantifies international trade and ecological footprint across countries and sectors. So I obtained the nature dependency ratings from ANCO. It provides the dependency levels of 271 industries on 25 ecosystem services. And these ecosystem services can be further divided into provisioning services, regulating and maintenance services, and culture services. For the Arrow, I mainly use its value-added data. The number behind the name of these countries indicates the actual industries in these countries, and the value-added data consists of 6 parts. By the industry mapping, I combine the two data sets together to have the final nature dependency figure like this. So the result shows that about 47% of the Southeast Asia's economy is moderately or highly dependent on provisioning services, while 27% on regulating services. If we compare these sectors together, unsurprisingly, agriculture emerges as the most nature-dependent sector, and there are some other sectors that have high provisioning reliance, such as food and beverages, wood and paper, metal products, electrical and machinery, mainly because of their reliance for raw materials and water inputs. So if we look into the differences of the specific ecosystem service types, we have some other interesting results. So for the provisioning services, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, about 50 to 60% of their economy is moderately or highly dependent on nature, and most of them are the agriculture dependent countries. And for these sectors, if the industry of agriculture, fishing, food and beverages, they have shocks on these industries, they may have severe impacts. For the regulating services, in Cambodia and Myanmar, about 50% of their economy is highly or moderately dependent on regulating services. And if we compare these Southeast Asia's together, we can find that compared with Thailand, Brunei, and Singapore, they have relatively low dependency on regulating services. It shows that these Southeast Asia's countries not only differ in the degree of dependency, but also in the breadth of the dependency. So for the cultural services, it is different from the previous two because in the original ANCO dataset, it only provides a high dependency level, so it only have one level. I found that 6 of the Southeast Asia's countries have relatively high dependency on financial intimidation and business activities. Similar as regulating services, Thailand has the broadest dependent sectors compared to other countries, possibly due to its culture tourism spillover effects. So compare my result with the previous report. There are some similar results, such as agriculture, fishing, food and beverages are highly dependent on ecosystem services. But the different one is that wire construction is highly dependent in the previous report. It is moderately or lowly dependent of nature in Southeast Asia. Also, compared to the number of the global or Asia Pacific results, less than 50% of economy in Southeast Asia are dependent on nature, and even it's only 27% on regulating services. So to conclude this research, I found that 47% of the economy is moderately or highly dependent on provisioning services and 27% on regulating services. So this number is less than the global or regional level. And Southeast Asia's countries differ not only in degree, but also in the breadth of sector dependency on ecosystem services. In terms of the differences of ecosystem service types, sectors, and countries, I found that in highly agriculture dependent countries, there is a relatively higher economic dependency on provisioning and regulating services. And Thailand exhibits the broadest cultural dependency, suggesting strong cultural tourism spillover effects across its economy. To conclude, I think the role of nature in economic structures is shaped by both sexual decomposition and the diversity of economy. And that's all for my presentation. Welcome to have any questions.
Thank you, Sujin. You prefer to have discussion at the end, Junga? You think? Or
I think so. One more remain the present, right?
we leave the questions for the end. Okay. So we go to the last presenter.
Okay.
Chloe is going to present her previous work, but she's also starting a very exciting PhD. So it's all related to finding solutions to the planetary crisis. Yeah, thank you, Chloe.
My screen. So yeah, thank you everyone for having me here. And so like performance, I'll be presenting a little bit of my previous work. It will be about 2 studies, and you'll find out in a bit. So this project is entitled Behavioral Change Approaches to Mitigate Biodiversity Loss from Livestock Production. And so I'm sure we all know that land and sea use change is one of the most dominant direct driver of recent anthropogenic climate change and biodiversity loss worldwide. And why is that? Because livestock production requires a lot of land for animal feed. And then we also need space to grow animal feed to rear the livestock. And then this coupled with the growing population and growing demand for animal proteins, this has led to a lot of intensification of farming and then even worse driver of climate change and biodiversity loss. Okay, so through our research, we want to look for pathways to shift diets away from and switch off this major driver of climate change and biodiversity loss so that we can feed our growing population and protect the environment at the same time. And we have some solutions out there so alternative protein sources that could potentially help to mitigate the impacts of conventional livestock production. So for instance, people will switch to plant-based diets to remove the need to grow so much animal feed and competing land use, yes. And there are also technological advancements such as cellular agriculture or better known as lab-grown meat or cultivated meat in Singapore. So this allows us to grow animal protein in the lab, and this will require less space and less clearing of forests. But consumers like yourselves and myself included are quite hesitant on switching to this novel protein sources. And so the challenge here is not really technological advancements, but really to get people like everyone to adopt these new protein sources. And this leads me to the research question, and really what motivates the research is that we want to understand what are consumers' preferences when they make purchase and consumption decisions related to alternative proteins. So what are the barriers and motivations that consumers have? And we're also interested in possible intervention strategies to influence alternative protein consumption behaviors. So to do that, we did our series of research in Singapore. So Singapore has a unique regulatory setting where cultivated meat and insect-based meat is approved for sale and consumption. And then we split our study into a series where we have a choice experiment and a campus experiment, which I will be sharing today. So why did we do that? We want to look at the national perspective using the choice experiment. We did this with about 900 survey participants. And then for the campus experiment, we were more interested in the younger generation as well as under the tertiary education system. Then in the choice experiment, we looked more closely at purchase decisions. And for the campus experiment, we look more closely at consumption decisions. And for the intervention that we tested, the choice experiment was more related to using a descriptive non-message, which I will explain in a bit. And the campus experiment was to look at providing positive information to consumers and see how this influenced their perceptions towards the novel proteins. So let me move on with the choice experiment first. So now imagine you're my participant, and then I'll show you this scenario in the survey, and you'll be asked to choose between nugget A and nugget B, or you're also allowed to opt out. And each of these nugget product is being described by 6 different attributes. So these attributes are listed on the screen. And if you look at the left of the screen, the attributes will take these levels, different levels. And the bolded font represents the baseline level to which we will make comparisons with. So these baseline levels are estimated based on the production of a 500-gram frozen chicken nugget package. And then we'll see if participants prefer the baseline over other kind of attribute levels that we show them. So in order to understand the effects of the descriptive non-message, we split our participants into 2 groups. So one group would read this message on the screen before they answer the choice sets. So descriptive non-messages describe what other people are doing. In this case, we told them that the cultivated chicken and insect-based meat is getting more and more popular among consumers in Singapore. And we want to see how this influenced their decisions during the choice experiment. So this is the interesting part of the results. And to read this graph for the benefit of people who are not really familiar with choice experiments. So for the gray line, if you see the gray line on the graph, to the left of it, it is where consumers derive less utility when they choose these attributes as compared to the baseline level. So for instance, compared to conventional chicken meat, participants least preferred cultivated meat, and then followed by plant-based, least preferred insect-based meat, followed by cultivated meat, and then plant-based meat. So in other words, they preferred conventional meat over plant-based, over cultivated, and over insects. Then we also found that consumers will prefer the products if they have lower saturated fats. But there were more inconsistencies in carbon and biodiversity footprints attributes, which suggests that environmental sustainability considerations are really secondary when consumers are making purchase decisions. And merely promoting these alternative proteins as more environmentally friendly will not be enough for consumers to adopt that. Then by now you would have noticed that there are blue and red lines. So remember about the descriptive norm message. So for the red color line, that's where we showed that's the group of participants where we showed them the descriptive norm message. So if you look at the graph, you would see that if we show them the descriptive norm message, they are less averse towards the novel protein sources. So this suggests that using descriptive norm message could help boost their perceptions or improve their perceptions towards alternative protein products and encourage them to buy them in the supermarkets. Okay, now I'll move on to the campus experiment. So in this experiment, it was a smaller group of people where we looked at their consumption decisions and the effects of positive information providence. So to do that, we split our participants into 3 groups. So the first group did not receive any additional information, so that's the control group. And then one group read only plant-based benefits, and the last group read only cultivated meat benefits. And then we conducted this experiment in 2 phases. So there's this online phase and an on-site phase. So in the online phase, we collected information about participants' socio-demographic information and also psychographic factors. So if you remember, we also, Prof. Roman talked about nature relatedness. So we also measured consumers' nature relatedness and how this would affect their perceptions towards different kind of, or their evaluations towards different kind of novel proteins. And then in the on-site phase, before they were given the chance to interact with different protein sources, so they are given a chance to eat them, taste them, smell them, etc. And before they do that, we gave them their respective information packages, and then they will rate their acceptance scores, or they will evaluate these different protein sources. So we track their acceptance score change from before they read the information and to after they read the information. Finally, we also have a debrief. Then these are the results. So we fitted our data into linear regression. So the dependent variable here is the change in acceptance scores. So you have noticed that if in the group that read only cultivated meat benefits, they have more positive change in acceptance scores for cultivated meat. And then we found that food technology neophobia, which is the phobia towards new food technologies, was the main barrier that hindered acceptance scores improvement for cultivated meat. Then if participants place more importance on meat, they would have increased scores for acceptance scores for conventional chicken meat. Okay, so to summarize, we found that participants generally still, or consumers still generally prefer conventional meat over the novel protein sources, although healthier options are more appealing to them. And the greatest barrier to their acceptance would be food technology neophobia. However, we also demonstrate that there are some approaches that we could use to improve their perceptions, namely using descriptive norms and also providing them with positive information of novel protein sources. So in a way, we have our research contributes to providing diet shifting pathways to help us feed our growing population while protecting the environment. So thank you very much. I'd like to acknowledge my funding sources as well as my co-authors. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chloe.
Okay, thank you so much for your all presentation, and today's seminar gave us a very rich and multidimensional picture of resilience research, right? So biodiversity, the human dimension things, and then climate risk, or so I think so we can save all of the all together. So anyway, actually, so 2 panelists already lived here. So first panel, he was with we, and he instead of his comment, and he shared a good quantifying the physiological health efficiency something and exposure ecology drivers and undefined understanding reports. So we can read the good report and then we can develop our research idea and collaboration things and together. And then another Inani, so right now, so she lives in here. So as you can see the chatting room, so she mentioned about our collaboration and seminar thing. So she said that thank you very much for the wonderful presentations. I truly enjoyed the seminar, but I'm afraid I need to leave earlier for another meeting. So and before she goes, she would like to ask the Professor Carrasco two brief questions. So first one, when it gets too hot, do people still gain the psychological benefit from biodiversity, or does heat cancel that effect? Because her research focuses on the outdoor thermal comfort and how heat reduce the people's time in nature, especially among the older adult. So that's why she asked to that. So please leave the messages and I trust to your answer to her.
Okay, I think that's a very good question. I don't think we can answer that with your research. I mean, we thought about doing experiments in which we change the temperature of the room and then see how it changes the psychological benefits, but yeah, we didn't get to do that in the end. But that was the next thing. So what we have is mostly related to it's complex because there are many things happening and there are very different nature doses. My guess is that when it gets too hot, people don't enjoy so much, and that's why when we look at nature dose positive effect, it's not so clear in the tropics. Whereas in countries that are not so hot, it's quite straightforward, right? You go more to nature, you have a lot of benefits, but here going to nature can be quite painful because it's quite hot. So my guess is that it affects, but that will be a nice experiment to do, right? So yeah, great idea. And then since you estimated willingness to pay for cooling, do you think it can be linked to PET, UTCI? What is the, do you know? PET, UTCI? Do you know what?
Let me see. PET and UTCI is an index of the thermal comfort.
Thermal comfort
cooling
index.
effect.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Universal Thermal Climate Index is the UTCI.
Okay.
And PET is a physiological equivalent temperature. Yes. So that is kind of the index to degree of cooling.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. I think that will be very useful to be able to link them. But when we do the discrete choice, we give them something that I don't know if it's easier to relate to temperature and say 1 more degree. But if we could express thermal comfort in a way that respondents can relate to, then probably they could also reply. So it could be something, oh, the way you feel when it is very hot and there is wind, and that could be one way to do it, but people need to interpret thermal comfort, right, to answer properly. Another way could be experiment and then estimate thermal comfort of the person and then say, okay, now how much do you value? So I think, yeah, very interesting questions for thermal comfort and then subsequent evaluation experiments. This could be done with Prof. Roth as well. I think that's his area of expertise, the temperature control thermal comfort experiments. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Okay, it's a very long time seminar, so please give any comments from Professor Min Kim. Do you have any comments or your critical thinking to our collaboration future, or just You can say anything.